Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. Whew, what a week it's been. Just got back to our place at the Jersey Shore about 20 minutes ago, slapped down some of the face paint. And I don't know about you, but I'm so tired. It's been such a crazy week. How did Trump do it? I know it was long. Did you watch? It was long. Trust me, it was long inside the hall as well. But all I could think was, he's 78. He's more than 25 years older than I am. And I want to go to bed. And I was not shot this week. I don't know where he gets the energy. A lot of thoughts on what we saw in Milwaukee. We witnessed history. Former President Donald Trump officially accepting the Republican nomination for a third time. And for the first time since Saturday, he did publicly speak about the attempt on his life. It was a riveting moment. I mean, you could hear a pin drop in that room when he started telling this story. He spoke in a different kind of voice. It was quieter. It was a softer tone. And I mean, there were people crying in the audience. And he told us exactly how it felt on his end and said it would be the only time that he would share his recollections of that moment.
The assassin's bullet came within a quarter of an inch of taking my life. I will tell you exactly what happened, and you'll never hear it from me a second time because it's actually too painful to tell. I began speaking very strongly, powerfully, and happily. I started to, like this, turn to my right and was ready to begin a little bit further turn, which I'm very lucky I didn't do, when I heard a loud whizzing sound and felt something hit me really, really hard on my right ear. I said to myself, wow, what was that? It can only be a bullet. Bullets were continuing to fly as very brave Secret Service agents rushed to the stage. These are great people, at great risk, I will tell you, and pounced on top of me so that I would be protected. There was blood pouring everywhere, and yet, in a certain way, I felt very safe because I had God on my side. This massive crowd of tens of thousands of people stood by and didn't move an inch. They knew I was in very serious trouble. They saw it. They saw me go down. I'm not supposed to be here tonight. Not supposed to be here. Yeah. Thank you. But I'm not. The crowd was confused because they thought I was dead, and there was great, great sorrow. I could see that on their faces as I looked out. I wanted to do something to let them know I was okay. I raised my right arm, looked at the thousands and thousands of people that were breathlessly waiting, and started shouting, "Fight, fight, fight."
Wow. It was really something. It was emotional. He's right. He should be dead. I mean, it was just such a fluke the way he turned his head at that last second. You've all seen those diagrams, right, on the internet. Right? I mean, if he hadn't gestured just a little bit to that chart, he called it the chart that saved his life, he would be dead. Incredibly, he's getting weird pushback from people on the left about referencing God. These people are effing sick. I'm sorry, but there's something wrong with them. Who doesn't believe, other than an atheist, that was divine intervention that saved him? Do you believe he's that lucky? It was just a coincidence? I'm not even close to understanding that. Now the party and his nomination is officially over. I've got to tell you, I've never seen, I've been going to these since 2008 was my first. I've been doing, presidential coverage since 2004 when I got started in this business. But I did 2008, the Invesco field and Sarah Palin and Minneapolis. And everyone thereafter. I've never seen the Republicans this enthusiastic. Never. And I know the left is like, oh, Trump's speech was kind of long and meandering, and therefore we have hope. Okay, if that's where you want to go with it, that's fine. But the average viewer sitting at home is probably not sitting there for 90 minutes on a Thursday night watching every minute of that speech. They're probably just going to see highlights of Trump, and they're funny and they're clever and they're very compelling, like the one I just showed you. And they've gotten clips all week of Kid Rock and Hulk Hogan. Fun. The Republicans are having a good time. J.D. Vance and others, Vivek, saying, you are part of our party. President Trump starting with that last night. I don't want to be president for half of America. I want to be president for everyone. Reaching out to the working class, to blacks, to Hispanics. It's just not your grandfather's Republican Party. And not to mention the things with the Gold Star families and the people who have lost loved ones to illegal immigrants and to crime. I thought it was a very well done convention. And that's what I think the people at home are going to take away. Now, nonetheless, the lingering question is, who's his opponent? Who's Mr. Trump going to face in November? That is less certain than ever. For a time late yesterday, it seemed that President Joe Biden was on the verge of dropping out. It still seems that way. He's going to drop out. I've been saying this since the night of the debate. I stand by my prediction in that moment. But the Biden campaign is pushing back vocally, though not as vocally as they were. The reports are it could happen as early as this weekend, but now more and more people are saying Monday. The knives are out for Mr. Biden from his own party. As one former Biden aide told Politico, people who have known this man for 30, 40 years are stabbing this man in the front and the back. They are Julius Caesaring this man. But now it appears his inner circle, I'm in the inner circle, they're digging in their heels, fighting for him to stay and for them to stay. I don't think that's actually what's happening, though. I'll tell you what I think is happening. I think he's going, and all along, the pushback has been he's stubborn and he's got to come to this decision on his own. So Democrats around him tried to help him do that by leaking certain things, but not the most devastating things. And as these 3 weeks have ramped up, they're leaking more. They're leaking the humiliating things. And now he's getting mad. And then late yesterday, we had a report by Mark Halperin, a longtime Inside DC reporter, who put some real meat on the bones of the exit plan, saying there will be one. He could announce it this weekend, probably Sunday, he said at that point. And he won't endorse Kamala. He'll call for an open convention, and then they'll slug it out. Then you got pushback on the record from the Biden campaign. It's not true. No, wrong. We're in it. They went on Morning Joe this morning and said, it's not true. President Biden's in it, though, again, less forcefully than we've heard before. And look, I don't have any inside knowledge. I just have my experience as a political reporter. He's gone. This is what they always do. They never say, yeah, the door's open. They say, no, he's in it. He's in it. Look what Ron DeSantis said until he dropped out. Look what Nikki Haley said until she dropped. They all say, like, for the long haul. You know, it's not true. He can't. And we'll talk about why he can't when two of our three pals from the Fifth Column join us, which is right now. Matt Welch is here, and so is Camille Foster. You can find their work at wethefifth.com. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Do you owe back taxes? Pandemic relief is now over. Along with hiring thousands of new agents and field officers, the IRS has kicked off 2024 by sending over 5 million pay-up letters to those who have unfiled tax returns or balances owed. Don't waive your rights and speak with them on your own. Tax Network USA, a trusted tax relief firm, has saved over $1 billion in back taxes for their clients, and they can help you secure the best deal possible. Whether you owe 10 grand or 10 million, they can help you. Whether it's business or personal taxes, even if you have the means to pay or if you're on a fixed income, they can help finally resolve your tax burdens once and for all. Call 1-800-245-6000 for a private free consultation or visit tnusa.com/Megyn. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hi, Megyn.
Come on, Megyn.
We're missing Moynihan thanks to the meltdown in our technology. He's one of the victims who couldn't get on his flight. What a nightmare that thing is. The crowdsource had a bug and it was updating the Microsoft program, and now all the flights are canceled and medical facilities are being shut down, and 911's it's just a nightmare.
How did this become worse than Y2K ended up being? I'm very confused by that. And also, how did you get out, Megyn? I'm sensing you routed around the special bug that ruined all of it.
I'm not going to lie, Moynihan, I knew I had to get home to make this show, so we got a little puddle jumper, and my team and I were on it. So we managed to avoid, and we lived. Last time Abby and I were on a puddle jumper, we almost went down. That shit was not safe. Anyway, today it was smooth sailing, and our pilots took great care of us, and we are here, I'm happy to tell you, well and alive. So good day to do that, by the way, right? Because it's a nightmare in the actual commercial airport. So lots of love and luck to all my fellow Americans who are dealing with this. Not just Americans, it's a worldwide thing. Okay, so let's move on. He not only is seeing polls, drop through the floor. We had initial polling that showed it was bad, but now it's just gone precipitously down. And they pay attention. As the wave goes down for him, he brings down everybody who's a Democrat. So that's why they're not just being nasty about it in the Democratic Party. They don't want to lose the Senate, which they're going to. And they actually thought they might be able to take the House, which now, no. But they don't want huge margins. They're like, what if there's 55 Republican seats in the Senate? How high could it go? So that's one, the polling. But the money's gone. The Katzenberg news was huge, you guys, where he went. He's, I think the biggest Democrat bundler, Hollywood movie producer, went to Joe Biden and said, the donors are gone. The money's dried up. And they were expecting some sort of shortfall of 50% for this month. Now they're saying they're on track for, they were only going to bring in, about 50% of what they had banked on. Now they're saying it's more like 25%. So, 75% of his funds gone in the wake of that debate. And his rehabilitation tour did nothing to soothe anybody's worries. So all that plus a unified Republican Party and Trump being propelled, thanks to last Saturday's just dramatic and terrible, but then ultimately triumphant results for him, have them seeing a united, excited, enthusiastic Republican Party. And I think the term is scared shitless. And that is why Joe Biden is going to go. What do you guys think?
I don't know if I could have imagined so total a kind of reversal of fortunes in this campaign. After Trump lost those court cases in New York, everything looked pretty bleak for him. He was certainly doing some fundraising, but you had a sense that there was kind of just a lot of things for him to overcome in this election. Today, after the debate performance, things were tight before the debate. But after the debate performance, this preposterous extended period of time where Democrats seemed to be pretending that there was just a single performance, a single day, a press conference that Joe Biden could complete without, dying, that would be the thing that could possibly correct the trajectory of this particular campaign. Had he dropped out after the debate performance and they found their way, meandered to just another candidate, they would be in such a better position. But after the failed assassination attempt, and quite frankly, after this incredibly successful RNC convention, I just think they are in a real hole. And I don't know, Megyn. I'm trying to think through exactly what might be happening with Biden and all of his various apparatchiks who don't want him to, at least seemingly don't want him to drop out of this race. It certainly seems like he desperately wants to stay in the job. It seems like earnest. I imagine Joe Biden also wants to stay in that job. I won't pretend to have any secret knowledge. I've been expecting him to drop out for a while. I thought when he was sick, I was like, oh, okay. I bet he gets sufficiently sick that he has a reason to drop out. But it's not hard to imagine that he really wants to stick it out, despite the fact that he's more isolated than he has been throughout the entirety of this process. So it's astonishing to see, and also astonishing to see how well Trump did at the RNC. The speech was long, but I didn't get the sense, despite the fact that there is kind of reporting that suggests as much, that people were bored in the room. The fact that he sold this deeply personal and humanizing story, that entire thing contrasts so sharply with the caricature of Donald Trump by his opponents as some sort of self-absorbed hater. He spent an inordinate amount of time really talking about these other people who'd been hurt, and the families that were suffering and the efforts that were being made to try to raise money for them. And if you just suspend whatever sense you have of Trump, the character, and just think about a man named Donald who nearly died, he came, millimeters away from being murdered, that changes a person. And he didn't seem rattled. He seemed kind of in control of himself. And I think it's important to just set politics aside for a little bit and kind of look at things in that kind of as objective a way as possible and say, this is a guy who seems very comfortable in his skin, and a party that seems unified behind him. And this is, I think the phrase that came to mind thinking about this was kind of total victory. He's gone through, as you mentioned, this is the third time he's accepted the party's nomination. The other two times, there wasn't a sense that everyone was really on board. But there is a sense now that the Republican Party is truly on board with this guy. This is not a lame duck second term run. This is a kind of newly vibrant Republican Party that seems to have real cultural power and influence in a way that they just have not in previous years. And it's kind of extraordinary to see. It's difficult to know how long this will last. But it certainly seems like enough to not just win him the White House, but win it in kind of overwhelming fashion if things hold in this particular way.
Yeah. Matt, the Democrats wanted to say, there was no change in Trump because he went back to, he referenced crazy Nancy Pelosi and some other, and said he's going to deport the illegal immigrants who are here unlawfully. Mm-hmm. All right. Who hasn't seen Nancy Pelosi for years saying the nastiest things one can say about Donald Trump? She ripped up his State of the Union speech from the podium when he gave that State of the Union address.
That's right.
She was on Bill Maher not that long ago. He went, twice impeached Donald Trump. If I were Trump, I'd be calling her a lot worse than crazy Nancy. That is mild. He didn't have a personality transplant when that bullet hit his ear. No one was expecting him to come out there like Oprah and start talking about healing our souls and trying to find a way to, no, that's not Trump. He is a fighter. That's why he had the fist up. But to ignore that there was a different side to him that he showed last night is to ignore reality. He's still Trump, but this whole convention showed us a softer side of him that was interesting. So, the Democrats are going to do what they're going to do, but to try to say he's more divisive than ever because he wants to deport the illegals, which he's been saying forever, or because he called Nancy a name, which I think was the only name that he dropped last night, is dishonest.
It was jarring or interesting, let's say, to see the difference between his speech and his public appearances. Just like he looks a little bit different in the stands. Like he looks somewhat diminished might be the wrong word, but just sort of like he had a different energy throughout the convention. The difference between that,
maybe you'll sign on to this, Matt, or maybe you won't. But forgive me, it's like a weird one for Trump. But he looks kind of sweet, like sitting there in the.
Megyn,
no,
I want you to think about your words now, Megyn. No,
look at him. Look at here with his grandson. It's just kind of sweet to see him reacting to his grandkids and smiling.
But look at Melania in the middle of that shot, though. That was perfect.
Kmele, stop looking at Melania for once in your life.
No, she could not be any more gorgeous. I'm sorry. How is this woman never on the cover of Vogue as first lady? But Jill Biden,
Dr. Jill,
who basically dresses in a grocery store bag, has been on. It's just very rough.
Yeah.
No. So the contrast between the Trump pre-recorded spots, right? Every night they would have, and this is the first convention I haven't covered since 2000, right? And so I watched it at home as a consumer, much more than you do actually when you're covering a convention, Megyn. As you know, you're busy, you're doing things. So I actually watched basically everything, and I was using like C-SPAN feeds and live feeds so I can see the band, play 38 special songs the whole time, and had a great time with all of it. But the pre-recorded Trump bits were that old Trump. It's like, they're going to steal the election again, and all this. And you could tell because he didn't have the bandage on his ear. There's a whole tone of voice that was different in those things than in what you saw from his speech last night. Yeah, he played the hits. He started rambling. That was a long, long speech. The sort of 60 minutes in the middle of it. When he was kind of departing from the teleprompter. But they did a very careful job of stage managing this. And I think it was like a last minute after the assassination attempt bit of stage managing, right? He ripped up his speech. He said he's going to strike this note of unity, which he did, certainly at the scripted top. And it felt as heartfelt as one can get from both Trump or a politician. You should never take all of this too seriously. But I was most impressed with the way, not just that we had individuals humanizing Trump. I don't know if I need to hear from another one of his golf employees at some point, like, knock that off, please. Or every single person who's ever been related to him. That gets a bit much. And that reinforces things that Americans don't like about Trump. Because remember, he's never gotten more than 47% of the vote. So an open question. I agree with it, with both of your guys' analysis, but still, is that enough to get him over the 47%? But the thing that was really interesting to me was both the testimony from just normal people, right? But by normal, I mean normal, abnormal. It's Americans. It was like I've been on this sort of patriotic kick since July 4th. The dude from Philly with a hat and the beard and the awesome accent, the Gold Star families who were just from everywhere, just like a lot of great tattoos were on display. And we saw this. Amber Rose. I know that's controversial among other people. I thought it was one of the greatest speeches at the convention. Kid Rock, I thought was horrible, but terrible. And he's America. He just is. There's something to it, and it gave a lot of people, I think, a permission structure. And Amber Rose is probably the best speech that did that, to say, hey, look, I thought this of him too, but the media lied to me, and I don't have to love everything about him, but it's different than you thought. And the fact that MSNBC has been spending at least some or a lot of its time concocting the most insane theories about, like, there are Easter eggs of white nationalism when J.D. Vance is talking about where he wants to bury his family. It's like, what are you talking about, Alex Wagner? That Rachel Maddow yammering on about the Lord of the Rings. Like, this narrative from the left forever that this is all about white nationalism. Dude, open your eyes and watch the convention. That was not a white nationalist convention, right? See, even like the competing religious figures last night, and I forget the dude from the Detroit's name, but also Franklin Graham. I mean, Billy Graham was always a Republican figure. And
he's like, Billy Graham, also great at the rallies.
Franklin Graham looks just like Billy Graham. And and yet who got the crowd amped up? It was our dude from Detroit. Like, he was awesome. And like, that was sort of the cornucopia of America that was on display. And I say this as someone who's not a Republican and don't plan on voting for Donald Trump, but there is unmistakably a sea change in the makeup of the party and its appeal, especially to what you might call just working class. And that has flipped. That has flipped in the last 10 years. And Donald Trump is the driver of that. And this convention absolutely cemented that.
I mean, having said, we've covered all these conventions, I can tell you, when I was there at 2012, when Mitt Romney was nominated, you didn't see anything like SOT 1.
Remotely.
It happened last week when they took a shot at my hero.
It's a Hulkster.
And they tried to kill the next president of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
Oh, no. I have goosebumps. I feel like I'm 12. Wow.
Not happening at Biden's or Harris's convention. No.
God, no.
Well, maybe they get The Rock. They get The Rock to come out, and he does.
No, he sounds like a Trump fan. Remember that interview he gave to Fox News?
I know.
He sounds like he's going to vote Trump this time.
I don't think he would do it. But if they got him, that'd be pretty close. This is strong.
It's amazing.
Who doesn't love the Hulkster? I love the Hulkster.
I know. And it's good to see Trump on his feet looking happy. He blows him a kiss.
Yeah, he did. Absolutely did.
It was fun, you guys. It was fun. Remember, like,
That's wild.
Like I said, this is not your grandfather's Republican Party. It wasn't stodgy. It wasn't all white, which is what the Democrats always say when they're criticizing the Republican National Convention. It was young. It was people from all backgrounds, all colors, all ages. It wasn't all a bunch of white-haired people. I mean, it was a good time. People were in a good mood. And you're attracted to that naturally, right? Like you look at it, you're like, yeah, Kmele, I want to be part of that club. Even Van Jones was saying something similar to it. And then David Axelrod disagreed. But actually we have that. Listen to this, SOT 11.
So that's why people are so mad about it.
We are like minutes away from Hulk Hogan, Dana White, and Donald J.
All right, so who do they want to run against? Let's talk about that.
I want to say
so we can have an academic.
You know what? You see something? I want to say something. This spirit that this guy has, you guys think this because he's drunk? He's not. This whole thing is like this. And hey guys, the last time I was in a convention that felt like this was Obama 2008. There's something happening where.
You just wrote a headline, by the way.
What's that?
You just wrote a headline with that comment.
Just like Obama, Trump is showing in this convention he has the capacity to alter the composition of the electorate. That is
the difference between 2008 and now is that Obama was actually popular outside of his own party, and that's not the case.
I don't think you should overstate it.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
We're going to find out.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah. I don't know about that. Van is an interesting person to watch in moments like this. I'm remembering Van when he says about Donald Trump early on, tonight was the night he became president. There's an earnestness and a sincerity when I hear him talk in these contexts. I'm also remembering him post-debate with Biden when he looked like he was nearly in tears, contemplating just what the future looked like for the party, but also just the horrific performance. What he's saying there sounds about right to me. The cultural shift is kind of potent. It is hard to ignore if you're a remotely objective person, even if you aren't a fan of Donald Trump. So I think that what he's saying has a tremendous amount of resonance. Maybe you get a hold of him. If you do, Megyn, make sure to pass me along his info. Actually, I got his phone number. I'm gonna call him. Because I do want to talk about this. Can I say quickly, Matt, you asked if Trump could get above 46, 47 in this next race. I think it's entirely possible. And I think there are two real reasons for it. One, he's clearly made gains in places and with people that he wasn't able to hasn't been successful with in the past. And I think you're going to see that in the polls. But even two, talk about reversal of fortune. There is a sense in which when you ask people, are you voting for Biden? And I'm currently on vacation with a number of my closest friends from college and their spouses, and we're all very good friends. And all of them are decidedly left of center. They are Biden supporters. They don't want to talk about politics. The kind of embarrassment that some people have had in the past when they talk about supporting Donald Trump is eviscerated at this point. The embarrassment that people have when they talk about potentially voting for Joe Biden. Even before this, you had people talking about if Joe Biden's brain is in a vat, I'm voting for that so I don't have to vote for Hitler. No one is interested in that kind of crazy talk at this point. They recognize that Joe Biden simply is not capable of doing this job and probably ought to resign at this point. And they have no idea who they're throwing their support behind when they say they just aren't voting for Donald Trump. You'll see a lot of people stay home. Maybe if it's, I don't know who they throw up. But if people are staying home and there's both an enthusiasm gap and a very real fact of Donald Trump having actually accumulated some material support from communities that weren't supporting him before, I think he could definitely get up there above 50% and win both the popular vote and the electoral college. Again, there's a lot of weeks between now and election day. Things could change. But the momentum is all there, and he does seem to just be a lot more controlled and contained. And the stock attacks that they've been using on him for years now, the white supremacist, racist monster, the hater of women, it's not sticking right now. And I don't know that they'll be in a better position to make these arguments later.
A couple of news items I want to get in. Biden just giving a statement. Forgive me, I think it was issued either to Politico's Jonathan Martin, or he's just the first to report it. Quote, I look forward to getting back on the campaign trail next week to continue exposing the threat of Donald Trump's Project 2025 agenda. It's not his project. It's not his. It's the heritage. Okay, but fine. While making the case for my own record and the vision that I have for America, one where we save our democracy, protect our rights and freedoms, and create opportunity for everyone. The stakes are high and the choice is clear. Together, we will win. I don't believe one word of that. Not one word. I don't think everyone knows. We should queue up the DeSantis and the Haley statements right before they dropped out. This is how you have to sound until you say, I'm out. Because if he doesn't sound like this, then that last 25% of the fundraising dries up too. Plus, it's his middle finger, like, screw you. If I get out, I'm getting out on my own terms. I'm not going to be bullied out of this race by Barack Obama. I did run and win these delegates fair and square. And I know people are using the term coup. I get why. I do get why. But the truth is, if the Republicans were in this position and this were their nominee, they'd be doing the same thing. It's not too late to change horses. And why wouldn't they? If this were the Republican Party, they'd say, yeah, hell no, we're not just going to let them win the election when we could sub out this guy and get somebody else in. Here's the other thing. Now we have 3 U.S. senators on the record calling for him to drop out. As the candidate, the latest, and just for those who haven't been paying attention that closely, we had first the Vermont senator, and then we had, it was Peter Welch of Vermont, and then we had John Tester of Montana. And now today we have the senator from New Mexico, Senator Martin Heinrich. Now, New Mexico, that's interesting because that's one of the states reportedly now looking more and more in play, along with Minnesota.
That's crazy.
And New Hampshire and Virginia. Wow. These are all blue states. They're not purple. These are blue states that are looking more in play. So it's no accident he comes out and says, as the 3rd Senate Democrat, that Biden should quit his campaign, yada, yada, with all the, flowery language around it. And then I'll give you one other data point. Polls. CBS News YouGov, new poll out, national, likely voters, so we pay attention more than we do to registered. Largest national lead by Trump over Biden in the campaign ever. He's up 5 nationally, up 3 in the battleground states. To put it in perspective, it's been 20 years since a Republican presidential candidate has won the national popular vote. It's been over 30 since a Republican won it by more than 5. The latest numbers show Trump at 52, Biden at 47. Trump leads with men by 13 points, 56 to 43. Older voters, independents by 10 points, 54 to 44. And whites, 57 to 42. But he's getting, at least according to this poll, 24% of the black vote. OMG. That hasn't, and 45% of Hispanics. Go ahead, Matt.
Also look at the youth vote too. And I say this as a father of a 16-year-old. There's a lot of people going to be voting for the first time. And there's a lot of people who are consuming politics for the first time, my 16-year-old being one of them, on TikTok, which, of course, is dominated by the red Chinese. Yes. What are they sharing on TikTok, these kids, right now? It's Trump fanfic. It's crazy. You have no idea, unless you have the unfortunate status of being a parent of a teenager, how much they're making incredible memes and videos among young people. And if you're going to look, and Megyn, you're right, like there's a sense of joy that's being communicated on the RNC, kind of like, come on in, this is fun, isn't it? That doesn't look fun over there.
And we're winners.
We're winners. There's a part of it too, Megyn. You talk about Joe Biden, like, insisting that he's going to be there until the moment that he's not. Of course, they're going to do that. But what is striking, and I think is ultimately damaging to the Democratic brand even more than everything else has been right now, is that Bernie Sanders did the same thing today on Morning Joe. It is that well-known figures within the Democratic Party are also playing he's strong, he's our guy, he's the best possible person. And they're doing this all the way up until that moment when they will stop doing that. They will turn on a dime and they'll try to convince everybody that Kamala Harris was the right person all along. I really recommend everybody who's listening and watching this to read a piece by Martin Gurri. He published on his own Substack. He's the author of the great book from a few years ago called The Revolt of the Public. Published it on Substack, and one Barry Weiss republished it over at the Free Press. It is a very withering take on Joe Biden's career, mostly that I agree with. It's a little bit too mean, but on Joe Biden's career, but also like his streak of incredible luck, first being tabbed by Barack Obama to be the vice president, and then like being the guy in place in 2020 when people were freaking out about Trump and also the progressive left. But he talks a lot in there about this sort of myth that the Democratic establishment created around Joe Biden instrumentally, just to sort of like try to pretend that he was this great president, try to pretend that he was this guy that Joe Biden, always had thought that he was, but the reality had smacked him in the face because he was a lifelong mediocrity in the Senate who really, really wanted to be president all the time, and he kept screwing it up because he's not very good at that type of politics. And so they created this myth of this great, infallible Joe Biden, the best foreign policy president that we've had at least since LBJ and maybe FDR, all this crap that is not true. And he believed it. Right. They created this edifice because they needed to have something with which to stop this Hitler from Hitlering all over us. And so they Project 2025ing all the way down, which
Project 2025.
Which is crazy. Like there is a Republican
music every time it's mentioned. Like
there is a Republican platform. You could read it. Like it's you know the Republicans.
Pretty simple.
But so the Democrats in doing this, and also the media that sort of support the Democrats, they have exposed themselves just as much, if not more, to be part of this. People surrounded Joe Biden for years, told us that he was great, told us that Robert Hur was wrong in saying that he was an old man who's baffled by events. That was terrible, that the Wall Street Journal was awful for reporting this, and that really he's the most vigorous person we've ever seen. He could do one-hand push-ups and whatever. They all told us this for so long, and now we get to see this final lap of them continuing to sort of say this insincerely. This is doing lasting damage to the Democratic brand. They are telling us noble lies in their minds, and Americans have been noble lied to a hell of a lot the last 5 to 10 years, and are rightfully sick of it.
Yeah, the truth is right there before our eyes. All right, let me take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and there's so much more to get to. I'm thrilled. I miss Moynihan. I love Moynihan, but I have to say it's really nice for you guys to have the space to talk because he's a talker.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
The word's God's ears.
Stand by. We will be right back. Let me tell you a story about a guy named Leo Grillo. Leo was on a road trip and came across a Doberman. This dog was severely underweight and was clearly in trouble. Leo rescued that dog and named him Delta. But sadly, Delta was just one of many animals that needed help, and this inspired Leo to start Delta Rescue, the largest no-kill, care-for-life animal sanctuary in the world. They've rescued thousands of dogs, cats, and horses from the wilderness, and they provide their animals with shelter, love, safety, a home. April marked 45 years since Leo rescued Delta. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions to stay open. If you would like caring for these animals to be part of your legacy, speak with your estate planner because there are tax benefits here for you too. You can grow your estate while letting your love for animals live well into the future. Check out the estate planning tab on their website to learn more and speak with your advisor. We say dogs are a man's best friend for a reason. You can help those who need it most. Visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. That's deltarescue.org.
You can see on the chart that saved my life, one of the greatest charts I've ever seen. You know the chart. Oh, there it is. That's pretty good. Wow. Last time I put up that chart, I never really got to look at it. But without that chart, I would not be here today.
Wow, it's really true. Welcome back to the Megyn Kelly Show. Matt Welch and Camille Foster of the Fifth Column podcast are with me. That was a great moment. I mean, seemed like a genuine ad lib by Trump, who's, of course, got a good sense of humor and made everybody laugh, and also a solemn moment. And he's right. Without that chart, he wouldn't be here. And we talked about how he repeatedly referenced God. And he was raised going, as he pointed out, to listen to Billy Graham and going to listen to Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. So there's no question Trump had religious thought and the belief in God repeated to him and, introduced into his life repeatedly when he was in his formative years. I don't know exactly what his religious commitment is, but I know at least what I said. And then you get this little lecture from forgive me, those bitches over at The View. Like, they can't, he almost died like 5 days ago. And this is where they went with, in response to that comment.
I'm a Christian girl. When something like this happens to you, like this assassination attempt, and you say something like God was watching me, that is a very unchristian thing to say because it's very narcissistic. What about Corey? What's his name?
What church is she going to?
Corey, the fireman who also got killed.
I don't know. I think some Christians.
What about all those guys who got killed on Sandy Hook? All of those people. Yeah. It's like, oh, God was watching me and not watching them. There's something very disturbing.
Not what he said.
I should have pulled the plug on that mic yesterday.
That's obnoxious. I don't know what church she goes to. That is how people of faith talk, and the intimation is never he was looking out for me, but not those monsters. Right. It's no, he was looking out for me. It was divine providence. We don't know why he showed his grace on me, and in another instance, this tragic death. But it's clear he did, and I want to make something of it. I want to do something good with it. That is a completely normal, insane thing for someone to say. It's totally consistent with what I hear Christians in my life say all the time. And I just can't. I have to imagine it's just kind of partisan, kind of mind warping that makes it impossible for them to acknowledge what is like plainly obvious to anyone who thinks about this for a couple of minutes. That's kind of like Whoopi Goldberg insisting that she would love to have Jill Biden perform surgery on her because she's such a great doctor. It's just, I don't think Joy doesn't mean that at all.
She doesn't get it at all. And it's like, you can understand, it's not, oh, God cared about Trump, but not Corey Compatore. It's
ridiculous.
I think most Christians believe God had other plans for Corey. God called Corey home and had a different mission for him. And those of us who are left behind to grieve the one we love struggle with that and feel sadness over that and wish it were different. And sometimes it does question you. It causes you to question your faith and your belief. Sure. But most of us get to the place where we reconcile, and we as mere mortals don't understand the plan, as you just said, Kmele. But we don't think it's narcissistic to say, thank you, God, for saving me. I believe I, too, was part of your plan. It's so warped the way she thinks about this issue. But I do think it's linked, her reaction to that is linked to what you guys mentioned before the break, which is the way the Democrats reacted when Robert Hur pointed out well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. Like, they're so blinded by their hatred for Trump and their need for Biden to beat him that every piece of information is processed through that lens, and therefore truth is totally erased. And their zeal to get others to see how bad Trump is. He's godless, right? And Biden is the second coming, on the other hand, manifests virtually every day and week in the news. Today's edition not only comes from the ladies of The View. I'll get your reaction on this, Matt, but from George Conway, who is, I don't know if he's still a Republican. He was a very well-known Republican, but then he's, part of the Lincoln Project Never Trumpers. And he is convinced that, I guess he doesn't think the Lincoln Project advertising was quite on point, which, by the way, they're calling Trump Hitler, even post-assassination. That came out this week. So he's decided to launch a different kind of attack on Trump, even though we were told by MSNBC and CNN and everybody else that Robert Hur was in the wrong because you can't diagnose somebody. It's wrong to talk about mental state unless you have a doctor who can diagnose. And Robert Hur can't say poor memory because that's like playing doctor on TV. I give you George Conway's latest effort to stop Trump.
Not simply eccentric or odd in a good way. He's unwell, mentally unwell, in a dangerous way. He is indeed a pathological narcissist on a level we have never before seen. He's a malignant narcissist who is also a sociopath or psychopath. What too many people are afraid of talking about mental health issues, particularly Donald Trump's. Pathological lying.
It's a rigged election. It's the only way we're going to lose.
His misogyny.
Grab him by the pussy.
His racism.
You had very fine people. Jews will not replace us! On both sides.
His authoritarianism. His endless quests for vengeance. His love for dictators. It may even explain his recent praise of Hannibal Lecter. All this is why I'm pleased to announce the formation of the Anti-Psychopath Political Action Committee, or anti-psychopath for short.
Wait, just part two. He went on Morning Joe, the place that told us we don't make medical diagnoses on TV. It's wrong, Robert Herr. Wrong. To say poor memory. When did you get your MD? And what did he do? Well, look for yourselves.
And once I started reading about personality disorders, in particular narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder, pathological narcissism and sociopathy, everything became clear. We want to level the playing field on the mental states of the two candidates. Both of them are old. Both of them misstate words. These are the DSM-5 criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. But here's the real issue. He is also a sociopath. This isn't hard. You don't have to be a shrink. Impulsivity, irritability and aggressiveness.
Trust me, I'm not a shrink. I don't know.
He raped a woman. He's found by a jury to rape a woman. And that's what we're seeing. And I think he's had an advantage over these last couple of years that people have been seeing him.
Wow. People just haven't been told by the absolute principle-less political hitmen at the Lincoln Project. They haven't really just been told that Donald Trump is a sociopath. Thank you for this new
or narcissist.
They were bringing out this DSM chart in 2016. I remember it, 2015 maybe even, but certainly by 2016 as well. And it's pretty interesting. Whenever I see a new super PAC splintering from an old, one wonders what's happening behind the scenes in the game for generational wealth, which if anyone who's seen the just gag-inducing documentary about the Lincoln Project, where they had cameras embedded with them, they're just fascinated by the opportunity by getting everyone's sort of sense of Trump hatred converted into a donation right now, that they can create, Rick Wilson and others, a generational wealth for themselves and their families. I thought when seeing their Hitler ad earlier this week, you're coming out with a Hitler ad after Trump has been shot in the ear, if you're making this Hitler ad, you are actually almost telegraphing your wish to be in the opposition. You think that generational wealth is better earned by striking up the resistance again, right? Because when there's resistance 2.0, there's going to be people who are going to be all inflamed and ready to convert.
What are you saying? You're saying that they would like to see Trump win so that they can be in the paid opposition, jumping up and down about him?
Makes me wonder about that as a possibility. Yes, Megan, that was the feeling that I had, because if you were actually serious about the Hitler analogy, I just don't remember a lot of generational wealth being generated by Hitler's opposition, right? Hitler's opposition died. That's what happened to them. So if you're just doing that now, again, after the assassination, after there's been at least a moment of people going, okay, maybe we're kind of going too far with some of these analogies. And they're like, no, that analogy is awesome. At a time when, Joe Biden hasn't been ahead of a single poll at any time, really, in 2024. Harry Ensign at CNN pointed that out. At this point in the race, 4 years ago, Trump had never been ahead. At this point now, even before the terrible debate, Biden has never been ahead. If you're doubling down on that right now, what does that say about your sense of strategy? It says to me that you're more interested in raising money. So you're going to go and advertise this crap,
and they
George
did.
Conway crap on the MSNBC and Morning Joe. It's terrible.
That group did raise a lot of money, Lincoln Project. I don't know how their fundraising is now. Can I point this out, Kmele, before we go to break?
Yeah.
Trump, he probably is a narcissist. I think you have to be a narcissist to run for president. I really do. I just don't think the average person thinks that they can do it, and maybe they can't.
Yeah.
But that's rich, okay? Speaking of Invesco Field and Barack Obama in 2008, literally with the Greek columns, it was like a coronation. Everyone mocked it because it was so grand and over the top. Sure, being a little in love with your own thoughts and voice. That's just a Trump thing, you see, Camille.
Now was the time. That's what I'm hearing. I mean,
yes.
It is wild to go back and look at this again. And it is interesting. I mean, to be, this isn't even particularly critical of Trump. At some point, the guy who you're electing is going to disappoint the hell out of you. It is interesting to think about these moments and what the reality was on the ground, 8 years later, when things kind of hadn't all gone your way. It's just worth keeping that in mind when you're kind of rhapsodizing about how great your guy is and how powerful and potent this moment is. Like, look at this, picturesque, unbelievable. Okay, calm down a little bit. Calm down.
I will never forget. It was like, we went to that Republican rally. It was like, Sarah Palin, oh my God, she electrified the whole audience, everybody. And this is amazing. And then you go to Invesco Field, like, they're effed. They're effed. And sure enough, we all know how that worked out. But it was the reverse. I mean, we haven't had the Dem convention this year, but does anybody think there's going to be that? The coronation?
I can't wait to get to Chicago, to be totally honest. Like, I
hope it's an open convention.
This clown car craziness.
I can't wait. Like, either way, it's going to be interesting. If it's Barack Obama, if it's going to be Joe Biden, I can't wait to hear what the speeches are. What are the speeches going to be? What are people going to say? Still, like the energy, like still alive. And if it's not, it's going to get super fun to cover the fight. All right, stand by. More to come. Quick break. Do you ever think, how can I work this hard and still be in debt? The piles of overdue bills, the threatening phone calls, never having money to do anything, it just won't stop. If you are trapped in debt, Done with Debt can be a way out. They have developed aggressive new strategies to end your debt permanently. Done with Debt stands between you and your harassing bill collectors. They will tirelessly negotiate with your creditors to lower or even forgive what you owe. And they do it all without bankruptcy or new loans. Think about it. You don't have to do it, which is highly unpleasant to do. Somebody else will do it. They might actually get loan forgiveness as the outcome. That seems worth a shot. One client said, one phone call saved us a fortune. I wish we had done this long ago. Done with Debt has unique strategies to get you out of debt faster and put more money in your pocket every month. But you do need to hurry because some debt solutions are time sensitive and you don't want to miss out. Visit donewithdebt.com. Speak with one of their debt relief strategists for free. What do you have to lose except your debt? Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com.
Personal note, it's, seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life. But look, it's, and I think, look, it's, at some level as an American, it's like hard to not get kind of emotional about that spirit and that fight. And I think that's why a lot of people like the guy.
An extraordinary statement by Meta founder Mark Zuckerberg, who certainly doesn't sound like he's going to be getting involved in this election. In fact, at the beginning of that clip, he says, the longer version, I'm not going to be getting involved this time with the Zuckerbucks and so on. And maybe some sort of an olive branch there to Donald Trump. It wasn't as far as an endorsement, but it certainly sounded like open praise. It was open praise. And you know what? It was a natural statement, Kmele. Kmele, it's like, yes, as an American, you did watch that moment if you were a normal American and thought, he is a badass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know about Mark, like the new look, he kind of looks like someone out of NSYNC or something. It's not a diss. It just it's sort of weird.
Want it that way.
But you can't forget that Mark is a Silicon Valley guy, and we have seen a tremendous shift in the culture. I couldn't tell the difference. But you've seen this tremendous shift in the culture of Silicon Valley. Folks like Mark Andreessen and various others. Peter Thiel obviously has a long history with Trump, although he kind of sounded like he wanted to stay out of politics for a while, is perhaps, at least at the moment, enjoying a bit of a victory lap because, his guy, J.D. Vance, and now Trump, who he was willing to support before anyone else, that people are doing it now. A lot of the embarrassment of at least sounding open to talking about a Trump presidency or being kind of polite to Donald Trump in public is something that, again, a lot of the kind of toxic implications of that have been washed away in recent days, quite frankly. So it's not at all surprising to see Zuck kind of strike a more moderate tone when talking about this kind of thing. And certainly, Meta/Facebook has no interest whatsoever in being seen as being particularly active in the election after the experience that they had in 2020.
Right. I mean, they got involved with all the fact checking and so on. It was a nightmare. And now they've really deprioritized news on their site, which I think is a bummer because I know a lot of people were getting their news on Facebook. Now they're much more into softer content. But the point is, it certainly sounds like he's going to be sitting this one out. And I think that's yet another good thing for Trump in the news cycle. No, we're not going to have to see all of his money backing the Democratic candidate. And this on the heels of learning that Elon is going to spend $45 million a month to the super PAC supporting Trump. That's a lot of dough. And that's just yet another calculation that the Democrats have to factor in. You know, Katzenberg's telling them the money's drying up. You're not going to have Zuckerbucks. You've got Elon bucks over supporting Trump, not to mention all the others who are pouring money into the Trump coffers. It's just, you can't win without money. That's the bottom line. And there are 4 months left to go. Well, I mean, there's 80 days, I guess, until they start early voting. But let's just say, what is today? July 17th, August, September, October. Yeah, so we've got 3 months and 3 weeks left to go. They need money.
Yeah. And it's super interesting. I mean, I didn't even mention Elon when I was talking about all the various people in Silicon Valley who are supporting Trump, but I've been paying attention to some of the discourse there. And I mean, I think they're making a pretty clear and understandable calculation. I mean, the Democrats, with respect to the way that the relationship that they've had with Silicon Valley, I mean, most of the people making investments now who are publicly supporting Trump are interested in AI. The conversations around AI regulation, around crypto regulation, certainly been places where Republicans have made some inroads with tech investors and entrepreneurs, the community broadly. And I think that they are banking on the future. And from their standpoint, even if you aren't a kind of dyed-in-the-wool conservative, even if you aren't particularly excited about the kind of economic policy that's being specifically articulated by someone like J.D. Vance, you may imagine to yourself, look, if my thinking is that the future of this country, the future of kind of technological innovation depends on the success of these particular technologies, then the people who are going to create the most favorable environment for us to do this work are the ones who are going to get our support. And a lot of them have looked at the two options on the table currently, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and have made a choice for Donald Trump. And I think that's a rather important dynamic that won't necessarily be washed away if the Democrats decide to run someone else in place of Joe Biden.
Yeah. It's no longer like stigmatized to be voting for Donald Trump. You've got so many rich tech executives, American entrepreneurs coming out and saying me. You know, look at the cast of characters. Like, I know that Amber Rose took a beating by some for getting up at this convention and saying, I'm voting Trump. But that took some courage, right? And she did it, and she represents a growing faction amongst women, amongst young people, amongst Black people. She's mixed race, to say, I don't care what you say. I mean, like, we didn't spend enough time on the 24% in that latest poll. 24% of the Black vote voting for Trump. That's it. It's over. That is a devastating death knell to any candidacy on the Democratic side. Now, I realize a lot of know-it-alls say, oh, that'll never happen. Zero chance that that'll actually happen on election day. But I mean, if Trump gets over 18% of the Black vote, Kmele, Biden's done. Kamala's done. Whoever's done. You cannot win as a Dem without those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty obvious his candidacy at this point is pretty much cooked. I don't see it coming back. Only a matter of whether or not someone else can pick up the baton and manage to make some inroads there. But again, let me ask you quickly.
Forgive me for interrupting you, but because one of the reasons they're saying it should be Kamala if it's not Biden is because Black women are going to be very angry if she gets passed over. And yes, I mean, you know, Black voters make up 13% of the American population. Half is female, the other half is male. Black men seem more inclined to give Trump a look. Black women seem firmly in the Democrat camp. Not all of them, obviously, but if you just look at the numbers. And I don't know, do you think Black men are like a huge constituency of Kamala Harris to where they'd be like, oh no, you passed her over? I don't see it.
I've seen no evidence of that whatsoever. Like this particular support and interest in Kamala Harris, it wasn't there when she was running for the presidency herself. I don't think Joe Biden got a bump amongst this particular constituency because Kamala Harris was running. And quite frankly, I just don't know that she actually has all of the kind of cultural credibility that people imagine. There's this video of her going to watch the Team USA basketball players kind of tuning up and practicing for their championship run. And folks looked kind of visibly disinterested in her being there in a way that they did not look when Barack Obama showed up. So I think ultimately authenticity and cultural relevance are far more important than the particular traits that she happens to have. And the reality is that a lot of people she reads as inauthentic in a way that some of these other people do not. So I don't think I don't see a tremendous amount of support for that, honestly.
So one of the interesting things, and we've got Matt back, we lost him for a second thanks to the technical glitches that are happening. Is Mercury in retrograde? What is happening? One of the interesting things on the Trump messaging, and I've been waiting for this piece of his messaging, and finally they're doing it. The people running his campaign are top notch. This ad is amazing. Right now it's just running on X. It should get a wider berth. I'll just describe it before it airs for the listening audience. It's in one of those sketch modes, like, how you can make your pictures, if you hit different things, look like it's just been sketched out with a pencil. It's in that kind of format, and it's very effective. And the thing that's so effective about it is it's Trump being inspirational, not just uplifting, but this is how you get over life's challenges. Watch this.
If I give you one message to hold in your hearts today, it's this. Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. Relish the opportunity to be an outsider because it's the outsiders who change the world and who make a real and lasting difference. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. You must keep pushing forward.
That's awesome, Matt.
Great ad. Just a great ad. And very much in keeping with the messages that we saw at the RNC this week. I was particularly happy to see, I think it was on the first day, it was to make America wealthy again. Right? People, I think this racial determinism in politics is so mistaken, especially when it comes to immigrant communities. And there's immigrant communities in every single racial classifications too, which makes it even more absurd. But the people who come here to this country, including J.D. Vance's wife's parents and others, yes, you're coming here to escape poverty, including some of the immigrants that Donald Trump talks less favorably about. But a lot of people come here to get rich too, or they come here to escape poverty, and their dream is to get as wealthy as they can. It is the American dream. Donald Trump has always been an aspirational figure. It's something that his fellow elites look down upon him because he's an outer borough guy. He's not an inner borough. He didn't make it on the inside of finance and media and the stuff that you succeed in New York. He kind of came with some family help and got into real estate, which is always seen as a grubby business in New York among the fancy pants type of people. And he has always had this sense of connection with those. And this is part of the working class shift of the Republican Party, which working class, in the most crude definition, are people like me. They don't have college degrees. I'm not calling myself working class. That's just technically a joke. But who doesn't have college degrees? Well, lots of immigrants don't have first and second generation. So usually by the second generation they do. But the first ones don't. A lot of people of color, or however we're calling whatever minority communities today, also a lot of Hispanics. And this sense, the Democratic Party for years was coasting on this sense of that Hispanics will always be with us. And of course, the black vote will always be 90-10 or something like that. There's no reason to make that automatic. And a lot of the ways that this changes, not only in this country, but in almost every Western country that you can think of where there has been a populist takeover, we have seen, and Patrick Ruffini, the pollster, has talked about this a great deal, you have seen a shift in working class allegiances from the left parties to the right parties, because the left parties have become more elite in their tastes, in their sort of sense of condescensions, in their treatments of culture. And the right has just been more kind of like, hey, everyone's welcome. Right? That's what the left told itself for a long time that it was doing and that it was supposed to be doing. But it's not actually precisely how there's going to be. I was struck yesterday and again all throughout the convention of one of the notes that was hit, which is that we can speak whatever we want. No one told me I couldn't say anything in this speech. Donald Trump is never going to tell you what to say, because how do people experience, everyday normal people experience that kind of cultural elite condescension that they hate? It is when they say something and they get corrected, when they're sort of forced to recite something they don't necessarily believe during a human resources meeting at work. It's these little things. They hate to get their language policed. You feel that. Our listeners at Fifth Column have been telling this from day one of our podcast. They hate those experiences. And so people can recognize that, because the cultural side, not necessarily the Democratic Party at all, although that comes into it too, but the cultural side of the left has been telling people what they can and cannot say. And human beings hate that. Like, stop doing that.
Well, Americans hate that.
Yes.
It's not in our cultural DNA.
Especially, yes.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about it because truly that's one of the reasons we live here, right? Like we were born here, and we were born to parents who came here, and all of that, it's baked into who we are. We don't want to be told what to think, what to say, how to say it. If you want to live like that, go live someplace else. That's not the United States of America. Every country has its own culture, and some are weirder than others. When we were over in Sweden in June, they told us that all the kids in K through 12 call their teachers by their first names. I was like, what? Ew. I mean, we do not let our kids call any grown-up by their first name. It's a no. And a lot of our friends will be like, oh, you guys would probably come over. You'd be like, I'm Kmele. And I'd be like, no. And my kids know that. So it's a nice thing to offer. But it's just culturally in the United States, we don't like to be told how to speak. And Trump's been, the champion of that. On the working class point, can I play this? This is one of my favorite moments of last night. Steve Krakauer, our executive producer, was on the floor, and he said it went over huge with the people around him. And this is yet another appeal that Trump is pushing in a new pitch he's making, that we should not be taxing the tips that service members make. He gave us some insight into how he decided to offer that pitch. Watch.
We're having dinner at a beautiful restaurant in the Trump building on the Strip, and it's a great building, and the waitress comes over. How's everything going? A really nice person. How's everything? Oh, sir, it's so tough. The government's after me all the time on tips. I said, well, they give you cash. Would they be able to find him? She said, actually, and I didn't know this, she said, very little cash is given. It's all put right on the check. And they come in and they take so much of our money, it's just ridiculous. But I said to her, let me just ask you a question. Would you be happy if you had no tax on tips? She said, what a great idea. I got my information from a very smart waitress. That's better than spending millions of dollars. And everybody loves it. Waitresses and caddies and drivers.
Pretty good.
It's pretty good. And it's interesting that Joe Biden has kind of an analogous proposal in some respects, this like top-down federal rent control that he's proposing. And one would imagine that there might be similarly kind of enthusiastic support for this.
But it's like, good luck with that. That's so impossible.
And also, anyone who has a slightly well-informed understanding of economics, you got a little bit of experience with rent control. We know how these policies frequently don't work and backfire in important ways. I mean, Donald Trump just has a stronger hand with a policy like this. I mean, frankly, I'm thinking about how I can find myself in a position where I can just accept more of my income in tips, because that would be better for me too. So there's a way to figure that out, and they don't craft this law in a very careful way. Maybe I'll benefit from that too.
Sounds pretty good.
But it's just great. And it sounds organic. And it's another one of those moments where Donald Trump is kind of shooting from the hip, creating policy on the fly in this really organic way. And it says a great deal about like where the campaign is drawing energy, where it's drawing its strength from at the moment, and where a more elite establishment campaign run by Democrats at this point is drawing their strength from. And it's interesting to wonder like about a situation where you've got an opportunity to have either Brad Pitt or Mr. Beast come and do like remarks at your convention. And we're in a moment where Mr. Beast is probably a hell of a lot more valuable than Brad Pitt is. And that is what you see on display. It's so much of what was at the RNC. And when we talk about like the memes and kids,
you
like
got,
that's
you got Hulk Hogan, you got Kid Rock, you've got this blatant and, on the nose reach out to the working class voters who are coming home to Trump in droves. This was never a traditional Republican voting bloc. And I will say, I've said this before, but and so have others. I do think Trump's, rough language, which I also share, as listeners to the show know. I can't help it. It was the lawyer years. Right, some locker room talk. Yeah, no, I don't go perverted. I just go, I've got some choice 4-letter words that I like to use here or there. Anyway, Trump uses those. And I think that's like his New York City construction. Even though he is a rich guy, it shows people, and it is authentic. He's relatable. He's funny. Doesn't take himself too seriously. And he did make a funny reference to this problem in air quotes last night. Listen to Saad 4.
He wrote me a note recently. I have a lot of respect for him. Sir, I love your storytelling. I think it's great in front of these big rallies. But sir, please do me one favor. It won't make any difference. Please don't use any foul language. I was a little embarrassed. He said, it won't make any difference. Actually, it does. The story's not quite as good, but I've been very good. The story is not quite as good, to be honest. I've got to have a little talk with Franklin, but he was great. My father would take me to see Billy Graham at Yankee Stadium. He had the biggest rallies you've ever seen. He was a good rally guy, too. But I love Franklin Graham. I think Franklin's been fantastic, and I'm working so hard to adhere to his note to me. I'm working hard on it, Franklin.
He's he's just naturally funny and witty. All that, Trump appealing, I just don't think, whatever, the speech was long. That's not going to do it. Kamala Harris, she's incapable of that kind of a moment. You guys, you've seen her on the swearing alone. Not that you have to swear to be president, but on the swearing alone, you saw her at like that event. They sent her out and she tried to drop an F-bomb. And it just looks so astroturfy, right?
Yeah.
It was like, trying too hard. All right, so let's switch back to the Dem side again, because I wanted to play this. In the midst of Halperin's reporting, and not just Halperin, but the New York Times also reporting Biden's going. He's like, the pressure's amping up. Could happen this weekend. I'm putting it in stronger terms than the Times did. But there's no one saying he's not going other than his campaign manager, right? So like the on the record statements are, he's in. And even Morning Joe this morning was like, can't see how this goes forward. I mean, even they appear to be accepting. It's one of the 5 stages of grief, reality. But here was Jen O'Malley Dillon. She's his re-election campaign chair this morning on MSNBC.
Is Joe Biden still in the race? Absolutely, the president's in this race. Joe Biden is more committed than ever.
What do you say to Democrats who say he can't win?
We've definitely seen some slippage in support, but it has been a small movement. The American people know that the president is older. What they're doing is they're saying to us, can he do it? And the president's saying, yes, I can. He's absolutely in it.
What does Joe Biden and the campaign say to those who continue to say he should step down, including incredibly high-profile names like Chuck Schumer and whispers from former President Obama?
I think every person believes that we have to defeat Donald Trump. We are united in that.
So is there any chance that the president gets out of this race at any point?
He is in this race to win, and he is our nominee, and he's going to be our president for a second term.
That's just a thankless job. As Karine Jean-Pierre, or whatever her name is, had said in an interview a few years ago, it's really, really hard to have to lie for your boss in politics when they're in the middle of going through hell. And let's remember, she used to represent John Edwards as his spokeswoman. So yeah, I can see that it makes it. You could tell by her hands, by the way, at the beginning of that clip, like she's doing. Those of us who have old people in our lives who are going through different things, they use little like physical mechanisms to try to get their words out and to not panic. With Joe Biden, it's the use the word anyway, like just to cut off a sentence when Jill is putting up cue cards from the audience. So she was doing that with her hands. Now it is so like an extended cringe moment, right? Like I thought last night was actually the worst of the 4 days of the RNC because I actually enjoyed the other days of the RNC, which is not, I don't enjoy major party political conventions very much in general. I find them to be mostly cringe, and I found this one to be mostly not. For me, the Kid Rock was cringe because the lip singing was really bad, and I didn't need to see his belly and a bunch of other stuff. But it was cringe that lasted 4 minutes. We're now on how many weeks since the debate? We are in this extended slow motion cringe. Every single interview with the guy, every single completely insincere spokesman doing something with their hands, every Bernie Sanders comment, every Barack Obama saying one thing publicly and then another thing behind the scenes in his rich friend's ears. It is all this cringe, and it all sort of reminds us of those things. Remember, they said about the Hillary Clinton servers moments and some of the things about it. One of the reasons why that was so damaging is because it reinforced what we already knew and didn't like about her, right? What we're seeing from the Democratic Party right now is reinforcing what we already know and don't like about the Democratic Party. That is a deadly thing to be playing in a presidential year in July.
Yeah. It is interesting.
But let's talk about realistically what they're going to do, because there is a split in the reporting. Last night, Halpern was saying he wouldn't endorse Kamala and would call for an open convention, but might say nice things about Kamala. And then the second report that came out said no, he would endorse Kamala. So they don't know. That's obvious. They actually don't know, and he probably hasn't made a decision on that. And look, I should point out there's some 5% chance crack-addled Hunter and the daughter with whom he took the inappropriate showers and the power-hungry wife who clearly doesn't want to let go of her Vogue covers and trips to the G7 are telling him, don't go, hold on, you've got the delegates. Like just like crazed cartoon supervillains who are going to come out forcing him, you'll do it. That's still possible, but I do think, not likely, because they want the Joe Biden presidential library, and they want the money that comes when you leave office a superhero as opposed to a supervillain. So we'll see. Anyway, how is it going to work? Because now you're hearing maybe Kamala will choose as her running mate, possibly Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, like if she gets the anointing, and she'll have this white guy from a critical, blue wall state, but he's Jewish. So would Americans vote for that ticket? Or I've heard smart people say, no, it'll be Kamala Gretchen Whitmer. I'm telling you right now, the American public's not going to vote for double estrogen on a ticket. It is not going to happen. We couldn't even get one woman on the ticket, all right? How are you going to get two women? We're going to go from, yes, Kamala Harris is vice president, but we've never been able to have a female president. Are we going to have a double? Not going to happen. We're not there yet. But they're like abortion. There aren't enough single women in America to make that ticket happen. There just aren't. And men, only the soy men are going to vote. Anyway, so what do you see happening? Because already reportedly, Gavin Newsom is now saying, I don't want it. And reportedly, Gretchen Whitmer saying, I don't want it either. These people want to wait 4 years and then throw their hat in the ring. So you're left with the North Carolina governor, the Kentucky governor, Bashir, and the Pennsylvania governor. Some people are saying might draft in somebody like Admiral McRaven to run with Kamala. Where do you see this going, and what would help?
Yeah, it is interesting to see how awful an assignment this has become, because you had a palpable sense after that debate that lots of people want to take this job. They want the opportunity to run against vulnerable, unpopular Donald Trump. Post-assassination, post-RNC, I don't know that kind of enthusiasm exists. And I don't believe most of the things Gavin Newsom says. But at the moment, when he says he doesn't want to run, he doesn't want it, I imagine that he doesn't really want this, that he imagines he would be in a far better position running against anyone other than Donald Trump at the moment 4 years from now. It's just a really bad position to put yourself in. I do think, just as a practical matter, Kamala Harris is almost certainly the best candidate for Democrats to run, not because she's uniquely popular or because the polls say so, but because what you want to try to avoid is a really gross, nasty fight that takes a long time to sort out. If you don't have to go have a brokered convention, if Joe Biden can look at his heir apparent and say, you know what, I can't do this, but she can, I believe in her, that's kind of the best possible way to move forward from here. But given the way things have worked for Democrats and how everything has unfolded, to the extent I'm making a prediction, and this isn't, me forecasting, it would be for the worst possible outcome for them. It's a brokered convention, definitely not Kamala Harris. Joe Biden doesn't endorse her and kind of drags this out even longer than what the current reporting suggests. And someone is sent up who ends up being the sacrificial lamb in November and kind of obliterating their chances maybe of running again in the future. So it's the way
between
things
a rock and a
might
hard
unfold.
place.
I disagree with the right honorable gentleman from his
That's
vacation
fine.
lair. I think it would be both best for Democrats and best for the country if they did exactly Camille's nightmare scenario, which is, to put a better spin on it, I think if you run Joe Biden, he's going to lose. I think if you run Kamala Harris, she's going to lose. She's a bad politician. She has failed upward spectacularly throughout her career, but she is just nails on chalkboard to the general population and kind of always has been. So I think what you do is you acknowledge that and you say that's not good enough just to say, oh, we don't want to piss off certain constituencies within the Democratic, or like think that we're going to piss them off. It's an assumption rather than something that they actually know, by the way. It's sort of elites trying to figure out what this all means. I think instead you say, all right, we got 5-6 weeks. Let's have a competition. Let's have a scrum. Let's make it all super high profile. It's going to attract a lot of attention.
It will.
And at the end, you'll see. I mean, Josh Shapiro is a pretty good candidate. You saw his remarks after the Butler assassination and killing. It was great. Like that's how you want your executive politicians to act in a moment of high stress like that. That was really a nice job. So go ahead and compete. Maybe someone rises above because I think as much as we've been singing, it sounds like the praises of Donald Trump and the RNC, which was an interesting and compelling performance. And he definitely is on a lucky streak, as much as you can have having a bullet hit you in the ear. But he's had a streak of good political fortune. I still think that there is a ceiling on his support. There are things about Donald Trump that people can be reminded of that they don't like. That happened to me watching watching yesterday in particular, but watching the RNC. Like, I don't need to see every member of his family. He has a nepotism issue. He does. He has a lot of people saying trying to make him super relatable by saying that, the great Donald Trump told me that I had capability and potential. That is good. That's part of his personality. And that's part of that great ad that you showed there too. But some of it sounds like the great man bestowed me with his attention. It's creepy. I don't like it. I don't like that as an American either, as much as I don't like people being told what to do. So there's a ceiling. And if you make a good, an actual competition and someone actually rises and wins a competition rather than is the receptacle of what the wise elders tell us who needs to run, then I think you might generate some interest. Certainly more people will be watching and paying attention to such a competition. Make it a reality show. You're running against Donald Trump. You got to come up with something. If they run Kamala Harris, she's going to get
The Democrats
slaughtered.
used to be fun. They're not fun now. They're boring and they're hateful and they're infighting nonstop. Here is what Ilhan
and reliably
Omar
conspiratorially.
The anti-Semite Ilhan Omar puts this out, but she's not wrong about some of her points in this. First, she's mad. She says, I can't tell you how shameful it feels to hear all these leaks about what Democratic leaders are saying and to not have a single one of them out here confirming or denying it. She's right about that. Pelosi, Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, now Barack Obama, where are their balls? She says it's a lack of leadership and it's making all Democrats look bad. Whatever this mess leads to will not undo the damage that has already been inflicted. May God help us all. Can I tell you, I think she's hitting exactly the right tone. Where are the balls? Like, they're just worried, I guess, about that point we made at the top, which is he's prickly and you can't force him out. You know what? You can, because you've got the in good conscience clause that will allow the delegates to separate from him. Like, just step it. Why are we all pretending he's fine and it just has to be his decision? Why isn't it my decision? He needs to go. I don't want to be governed by this infirm man, and I don't want him having power over my children's wellness, whether it's with the nuclear football or the draft, whatever it is. The big buzz that I was hearing among some of my Republican friends at the convention was, do you think Biden's got the nuclear football right now, or it's back in DC, like it's not with him in Delaware, or is it with, and it's a great question. Who does have the nuclear football right now? Who do we want to have the nuclear football right now? And what does that say about the current state of our president?
Yeah. The longer this goes on, the worse it gets for Democrats, and certainly for the Democratic leadership, who have just been talking out of two sides of their mouths and who are dutifully leaking this stuff to the press. I mean, I don't know if
where are the balls? You tell me, Kmele, where are the balls?
I don't have any idea. I'm not sure why they imagine playing this game is actually good for them. This is absolutely abysmal.
Right. I realize there's not necessarily a party elder who can just go in there and wrest it away from Joe Biden. But if you're going to take him out, do the coup, like I understand why people use that word, then what is it? Like, you don't want to be seen as a coup leader. You want to be loved, and you want to look like, I was totally Team Joe. It's just the COVID, the vid took him out. And it's so sad. And people are supposed to believe that, Matt? Like, what's the long game of these people sticking the knife in behind the scenes?
I mean, at this point, what Democrats use as their kind of truth tellers are James Carville and Bill Maher. That's not great. I like both those guys. But also they are not elected politicians. They are people who like self-evidently speak their minds. And that is so rare seeming among the Democratic coalition. That shouldn't be rare. Right. That's just sort of a normal thing. You should be able to blurt out honestly. In fact, that was at some point seen as an advantage of Joe Biden. Remember, he blurted out in support of gay marriage as he was vice president. I think it was pretty stage managed, but whatever. He was, he would just have things come out. It just wouldn't necessarily always be as helpful to my point of view as that particular one was. But you don't have these sort of blunt truth tellers. The rise of Bill Clinton in the 90s and the sort of third way Democrats, that was supposed to be kind of that lane, right? They were going to tell the new truths to the old kind of labor union Democrats that, hey, look, you can't just spend money forever. You can't ignore crime. You can't ignore illegal immigration. Go back and read the 1996 Democratic platform at that convention. That would make Donald Trump blush with how restrictionist it was. It wouldn't actually. He's incapable of blushing. But you get the idea. They had this sort of sense of, and some of it, I'm sure, was, triangulating, and it was kind of pandering in its own way. But it was also to kind of like prick those little bubbles of like, let's stop pretending that X and Y are not true. Democrats don't really have that character at all. I guess it's John Fetterman, right? John Fetterman has that ability. If he ran for president, Trump would be in for it. That would be a totally fascinating
That actually would be an interesting
contest.
race. Boy, he's changed so much. Let me tell you this. Chris Coons, who is, as Benji Sarlin of Semaphore put it, as close as it gets to messaging from inside the White House. He's a top Biden ally, and he, at an event in Colorado today, said Joe Biden is weighing who the best candidate to beat Trump is. Quote, I am confident he is hearing what he needs to hear from colleagues and from the public. More and more. And as this happens, you get Joe Biden's campaign just issuing a statement saying they cannot wait to get out there next week. They're so excited to get back on the campaign trail, setting dates, right? Like, I look forward to getting back on the campaign trail next week to continue exposing the threat of Donald Trump's Project 2025. I read it earlier. My team for kicks did pull some of the DeSantis and the Haley stuff. Okay? This is a reminder. And all this is unusual, but these are also primaries. This is kind of still primary season for the Democrats, so it's relevant. Normally, when you're at the general election phase, no one's dropping out because you wait until election day and you find out who won and who lost. I said on Twitter last night, is this the first election anyone can remember where one candidate is beating the other so badly that the other candidate drops out before election day? Like, it just waves the white flag and says, it's over. I realize we're going to cut our losses, try to sub in a new candidate. I don't remember such a thing. Okay, so listen here, just for kicks. Ron DeSantis dropped out on January. Oh, okay. So keep in mind, he dropped out on January 21st, 2024. And now listen to these remarks in the days prior to that.
If you don't finish second in Iowa, there's going to be pressure for you to bow out of the race. Would you do that?
Oh, we're gonna take Iowa. I'm not worried about that. We're in this for the long haul, and we're built for the long haul.
Not dropping out of this race tonight or tomorrow.
This
no
is
matter
December
what.
29th.
We're going on.
This one's January 15th.
We've been built for the long haul. It's all about the accumulation of delegates.
Even if you come in third place tonight, there's no chance your campaign is dropping out. Is that what you're saying? There's no chance.
We're
you're
in
out
it
of
for
this
the long haul. We're going to do well. I know the media likes to do the speculation. I'm excited.
Just asking the questions.
I'm excited for the votes to come in because that'll be the first real data point.
Is there any way Ron DeSantis drops out before the end of March?
Look, my goal is to win the nomination. I told my people this from the very beginning. I don't want to be VP. I don't want to be in the cabinet. I don't want a TV show. I'm in it to win it.
Are you in through the end of March? Do you have the money and the staff and the ability to compete through the end of March?
Yes, on that, 100%.
That was January 18th. He dropped out January 21st. I mean, this is
100%.
how, and I'll give you Nikki Haley. All right, just as a reminder, here's Nikki Haley. She dropped out March 6th. You're going to hear her first January after she lost New Hampshire, then February after she lost South Carolina, and then the last one will be March 5th, Super Tuesday, and she dropped out the very next day after the last soundbite here.
Now, you've all heard the chatter among the political class. They're falling all over themselves, saying this race is over. It's not over. Well, I have news for all of them. New Hampshire is first in the nation. It is not the last in the nation. This race is far from over. I said earlier this week that no matter what happens in South Carolina, I would continue to run for president. I'm a woman of my word. I am filled with the gratitude for the outpouring of support we've received from all across our great country. But the time has now come to suspend my campaign. I have no regrets.
Okay. Just a reminder, they all sound completely bullish on their chances and their longevity and staying in until the moment they say, peace, I'm out of here. So we're on, forgive me, but it's kind of like a death watch, not an actual death, but campaign death watch right now. If you weren't following the news, a massive hit to the US dollar just came in June when Saudi Arabia did not renew its 50-year petrodollar deal with the US. Since 1974, Saudi Arabia has sold oil exclusively in US dollars, and that was huge to our global economic dominance. Now they want options other than the dollar. So ask yourself, if there's less demand for the dollar, what happens next? Look, it's reasons like this that Americans are looking at Birch Gold Group. For over 20 years, Birch Gold has helped tens of thousands of Americans protect their savings by converting an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. To learn more, text the word MK to 989898 and claim your free, no-obligation info kit on gold. That's MK to the number 989898. Birch Gold has earned the trust of so many with their education-first approach, their thousands of happy customers, and many 5-star reviews. Consider protecting your savings with gold before the dollar plunges any further. Text MK to 989898 today. The guys have graciously agreed to participate in phone calls. All right, we're going to kick it off with Steve in New York. Steve, thanks for calling in. What'd you think last night?
I thought the intro where he started his speech was great. The empathy and all that. He did ramble on quite a bit. But the reaction I've heard is that, the Democrats, they're so deranged, they're just going to hit abortion with J.D. Vance. It's wild. Mm-hmm. I think they just don't know what they're doing. They're crazy.
Do you want Joe Biden to drop out?
I don't know. I don't think either way they've got much of a chance, honestly.
It was interesting at the convention, you guys, that Trump and all the other speakers, they did shift from mentioning Biden. Trump said, I'm not going to speak his name, and he spoke it once or twice, but they were very much more focused on Democrats and their policies, which is the smart move, right? Like, don't make it about Biden, because they don't know who he's running against at this point.
They did talk a lot about Kamala Harris and her job, particularly the border. Throughout the convention.
We'll be hearing a lot about her as the border czar if she becomes the nominee. Let's go down to Texas, from New York to Texas, and we'll talk to our friend Leanne. Leanne, what's on your mind?
Hi, thank you so much. It's awesome to hear you. I just wanted to say it was so refreshing to see his family because for the last 3 or 4 years, all we've heard are all these bad things. And it was nice to kind of re-meet his family. And there's, so I was pleasantly surprised and I really enjoyed it.
Take that, Matt Welch. She liked seeing the family. She didn't think it was a nepotism issue. She delighted in it.
I love seeing the kids, especially the grandkids. The one who was obviously too tired to be awake and doing all of that. No, it's more of Eric and Don Jr. and Laura has a reason to be there, but it's a little bit embarrassing from my point of view that she's the head of the RNC. Like, it's daughter-in-law. I don't like to be reminded of.
But she's a co-chair of the RNC. She's co-chair, which does matter. But she's doing her piece of the RNC work the way you'd want somebody to do it. Like, I actually spoke to a former head of the RNC about this, and this person was like, it actually makes perfect sense to me because, the other guy, forgive me, I can't remember his name right now, but he can do all sort of the technical stuff, and she can go out there and raise enthusiasm and raise, money and donor and all that. In any event, got it. You didn't want to see fellow Trump members out there, but Leanne disagrees. Matt, let's go to Nevada, where Trump is leading 6 points, 7 points, depends on the poll. It's pretty crazy. And David, what's on your mind?
Hello, ma'am. Thank you for having me. I don't want Joe Biden to drop out. I want him to see it through. Because if he drops out, they're going to canonize him, and I will not be able to take the coverage of how great he's been for 50 years for the next 6 months.
Fair enough.
Gentlemen, David's got a good point, does he not? It's already starting. They're like teasing him with it. You could be the Messiah or you could be the evil devil. Like, it's up to you.
I mean, my sense is that the Trump campaign certainly doesn't want him to drop out. They want him to stay as long as possible.
Oh, they're like, coup! It's a coup. This is deeply wrong. Yes, I agree. Okay, thank you for calling in. Kurt in Florida. Hey, Kurt, what'd you think of last night?
Hey, Megyn. I ended up halfway through Trump's speech turning it off and going to bed because I thought that was a better use of my time.
Totally.
So I would say I really wish Trump would have spoken more to the haters. And when I say that, he could have done two things. Number one, refuted a lot of the garbage out there and made himself kind of look more magnanimous is maybe the wrong word, but I think he should have said, look, I want to talk right now for the next couple of minutes to the people who think the shooter missed or were mad that the shooter missed, because there was a lot of stuff on social media.
Still.
And he should have said, look, don't, and he would have got boos from the crowd, blah, blah. And I would have said, look, don't be mad at them. Don't hate them. There are a lot of useful idiots out there. A lot of people have been lied to for 8 years. And I'll just speak to a couple of the lies. He could have briefly reminded people about Charlottesville, about the whole bloodbath thing, and said, look, for those of you who hate me, I think it's misplaced. And he could have really hammered the narrative if he had done it the right way and addressed several of the misinformation issues out there. I kind of think he missed it.
I think, he probably didn't want to be defensive. I'm sure he was instructed to try to be more positive and forward looking, but Trump has a general, instinct to go defensive. They said I did this, and I take your point. I want to get to Megyn. She's in Oregon. Megyn in Oregon. Tell us what your thoughts are.
I am a registered Republican here in Oregon, and I am a school counselor in our school districts here.
Okay. And what did you think of last night? What did you think of the convention?
I thought it was amazing, and I wanted to comment on the DSM comment that everybody is wanting to say Trump has a narcissistic personality disorder, and but he cares about us. And if you look at it, I would want to see him in a therapy session, but I doubt highly he is trying to do malice to this country. And I hate that my profession is looked at as only one-sided. And I'm heartbroken at that because it's all of the citizens that are listening to these lies, and they're getting manipulated by what some people want to say is mental health, when it's not. And I'm watching some of the kids and the transgender, and I'm just passionate about it. And I live in a heavily blue state.
Oh my
and
gosh,
so
Megyn, fight the good fight out there. That's not an easy battle. Listen, I got to wrap it because we're coming to the end of the show, but thank you for what you do. And stand strong. You're not alone. You might be alone in your more right-leaning politics in Oregon, but there are millions and millions around the country who have your back. Guys, what about that? You know, I kind of gave some thought to Trump, and for sure he's self-promotional in the minute we have left. But I think as president, we saw a guy who, whether he was doing it because he wanted his legacy to be great or because he loved America, it was kind of irrelevant to me. When he's in there, he wants to cut good deals that help us. And what the particular motive for it is never really much mattered to me. Am I wrong?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think especially last night, the fact that he didn't spend a lot of time on the defensive, trying to defend his own record. He was talking in mostly hopeful and optimistic ways about what he might be able to do for the country. Certainly didn't come across as overtly narcissistic last night. So I think that those two callers, it's an interesting juxtaposition. I don't think that it's a huge issue, at least in terms of the presentation.
Yeah, it's like Dr. Laura always says, just do the right thing. If he does the right thing, I don't really care why he's doing the right thing. You guys always do the right thing, and that's come on the show and bring your witty, insightful commentary. What do we know if Moynihan, have we had proof of life?
I haven't seen anything.
Assumed death.
Terrible.
He's in first class throwing back cocktails. I'm sure it's fine.
He totally is. He's probably listening to us somehow right now. Thank you, guys. Great to see you both.
Good to see you, Megyn.
All right. We would love to hear from all of you. It's Friday, and we put out our one email of the week. We never bother you. We just put out our one email, our American News Minute. You can sign up for it by going to megynkelly.com. And there you will get edition number 2. Not only of all the week's, antics, but of Strudwick's antics at the Jersey Shore. He might actually be getting worse. Have a great weekend. See you Monday.